So what went wrong with Renner? Why did she become the person who betrayed her entire home country, the kingdom of Riestes? Well, let's find out. And I have to start by speaking in a way more in line with YouTube standards, because the woman who, in the end, went through what we'll continue to call a very goal-oriented personal development, also didn't have an easy childhood. Simply put, Renner grew up like a storybook princess. She lived in a world full of magic and wonder, in a beautiful castle. Hunger and illness were never an issue for her, thanks to healing magic and the wealth of her father. Not only did she have her youth, but also her beauty. In other words, she had a childhood that you'd usually only see in Disney animated films. However, she had one decisive problem. All material wealth was meaningless to her without a connection to another person. Renner was a genius from a young age, almost like Dr. Vegapunk from One Piece, just without a devil fruit. But with her genius came an even more devilish curse: social isolation. Renner couldn't build any connections with the people around her. A human child raised by wolves at least has a social structure they can integrate into, but due to her extraordinary intelligence, Renner was denied this connection, and it was as if she had been raised as a human child among a tribe of orcs, goblins, ogres, or similar creatures. She quickly became aware of her otherness, and others didn't understand her because her intellect made her experience of the world entirely different. As a result, Renner distanced herself from her wealth and social status, and due to the stress, developed an eating disorder. Again, to phrase it in a very YouTube-friendly way. And such things typically don't have a good prognosis, if you know what I mean. This worry about his third daughter naturally weighed heavily on her father, who, perhaps, didn't even notice that his two sons, Zanak and Barbro, were developing a very unhealthy relationship with each other. But all of this changed once Renner found a person she could connect with. In one of the streets of the capital of Riestes, a street boy was shivering and freezing. He had just had the misfortune of running into some really bad guys, who had treated him terribly, and now, shivering and freezing in the cold, wet capital, he was nearing his end. In this semi-conscious state, Clyme saw out of the corner of his eye the silhouette of Renner and mistook the young princess for an angel. And that look of complete bliss with which Clyme gazed at Renner triggered something in her. For the first time, she was able to form a real connection with another person. However, this connection wasn't a healthy one, because Renner didn't see this dumb street boy as an equal being, but as a loyal dog. Someone who would be unconditionally loyal to her and love her, even though he was intellectually inferior. So once again, something very unhealthy had been set in motion here, a fixation that had begun to take root. But no one at court noticed this. First of all, Renner was just the third-born princess, and the fact that Renner now ate properly, had found someone to connect with, and soon after fit into her social role, was seen by the people at court as healing. And it must be said that in this fantasy world, mental issues of this nature, again to phrase it in a very YouTube-friendly way, weren't really taken seriously. The magical way to address these problems would be to go to a priest or preacher and have new hope instilled in you. As strange as it sounds, this actually works in the new world of Overlord. Naya Baraha managed, as an evangelist, to restore hope to many residents of the Holy Kingdom, who had gone through hell on earth thanks to Demiurge and his demons, helping them cope with their trauma. In other words, the inhabitants of this world lacked any deeper psychological understanding of what was truly wrong with Renner. Only Marquis Raven noticed that something was wrong with Renner, recognizing that from childhood she was very intelligent but had social difficulties. As a result, her fixation on Clyme, her de facto human pet, her dog that she wanted to keep on a leash so he couldn't run away, was seen at worst as a fetish. Even Renner's brother Zanak only brought this up in a small circle after Renner had talked a bit too much about all the things she wanted to do with Clyme. And the rest of the court increasingly looked at the Golden Princess with approval, and some of the older members with growing interest as well. Renner earned her reputation as the Golden Princess, someone who was smart but seemingly naively kind, who apparently only wanted the best for everyone. Naturally, the royal family also had a vested interest in maintaining its reputation by downplaying Renner's childhood problems. As mentioned, no one understood the core issue, that Renner, fundamentally, only had a human connection to Clyme. This had fatal consequences because if Renner, this genius, was only interested in Clyme, then the kingdom, her family, the land, and its people were nothing more than bargaining chips to her. Demiurge and Albedo exploited this connection to bring Renner over to their side. Since Renner had eyes only for Climb, it didn't bother her to betray her family, her country, and the people who loved and admired her, selling them out. Renner condemned the remaining 9 million inhabitants of her country to ruin, exchanging all their lives for her own happiness, her own immortality, and the eternal life of her lapdog. Renner felt no shame or remorse, nor did she feel disgust or repulsion. On the contrary, from deep within, she felt pure gratitude and joy that these people had been sacrificed for her. Once again, she understood exactly what she was doing, and didn't try to suppress it. She knew how terrible her actions would seem in her former social context, but Renner felt nothing but honest and sincere gratitude for the sacrifice that millions of people had made for her happiness. That's why Albedo considers Renner a heteromorph in spirit, even when her body was still human. Ironically, it was only in this demonic lair that Renner found social connections, namely with Demiurge and Albedo, who were intellectually her equals, with whom she could have discussions on equal footing. In this sense, she had finally founded a family, people she considered her equals, who understood her perspective, comprehended it, and could think along with her. In Albedo, Renner also found someone with whom she could share her obsession with Climb. For Albedo, Eins Ualgaun is what Climb is to Renner, her great love. So even in this regard, Renner was now able to exchange ideas with someone like-minded, discussing every little detail of her obsession and perhaps even drawing further inspiration from it. In other words, Renner has now found a family, the love of her life with whom she will live for all eternity, and even a better palace in the heart of the Great Tomb. Renner has gotten her Disney happy ending, and not just because of her song in the anime, but because everything she ever dreamed of has come true, and even more. Only from our perspective do we, of course, understand the enormous tragedy behind this happiness, and how far removed her behavior is from that of actual Disney princesses. And now it's your turn. What do you think about Renner's childhood, her loneliness, and her obsession with Climb, as well as the video? Let me know down in the comment section. Okay, bye.